Very often, beginning designers will put words, phrases, and graphics all over their design, filling up the entire corners and taking up lots of room so there won't be any empty space. When pieces of a design are scattered all over like this, the page appears unorganized and information may not be easily accessible to the reader. The principle of proximity states that if you grouped related items together, it's easier to understand their relationship. Physically move them closer to each other so that their related items are seen as one cohesive unit, rather than a bunch of unrelated bits. Items or groups of information that are not related should be away from each other and not put in close proximity to other elements. This gives the reader an instant clue as to the organization of the page. In this example, the designers intended to create a flyer that was fun and energetic. There's a lot of information happening on this page. I know it's a garage sale, but can you tell me where the sale is happening? Do you even know what's being sold? To clean this up, let's take all the elements that are related to each other and move them closer together. Now everything has its own space, and instantly it's easier to read. There's plenty of room between each of the groups of information. You know exactly where to go, what's being sold, and even that there's free donuts. As a designer, when you create a layout, you should know which pieces of information are logically connected. You should also know which information should be emphasized and which can be de-emphasized. Express that information graphically by grouping it. Here's a typical masthead. How many separate items are on this page? Judging from the placement, do any of the information seem related to one another? There's a title and a subtitle. There's a volume number and date, and even a graphic. Should these be separate from one another, or could they be brought closer together? I would start a redesign of this work by deciding which elements should be grouped into a closer proximity and which should be separate. Now, this redesign has proper relationships that have been established. Your eyes are clearly drawn to the title because it's bold and the graphic is pointing to it. The subtitle is closer to the main title, and the volume number and date are in their proper place at the bottom. Once things had their own proximity and placement on the page, I could then focus on redesigning other elements too. I emphasized the hierarchy by changing everything to all caps to lowercase, and I changed the corners from being rounded to straight to give it a more clean, stronger look. I can even enlarge the plane and let it break out of the boundary. All of this opens up the space and makes it a stronger design. Here's a typical beginner-level business card. The problem here is that too many elements are separate in such a small space. How many times does your eye stop at looking something, and where does your eye even begin? Is it in the middle? Probably because that's the boldest, but where do you read next? For me, my eyes have to wander to every corner just to make sure I don't miss any information. Now, with this redesign, I grouped related items together into closer proximity. I didn't even have to change the size of anything. The business name and the person's name are together, and their contact information is now together. There's no question about where to begin reading the business card, and there's no question as to where to go next. Proximity is really about understanding the needs of your content and being aware of what you should emphasize and what you should not. As in life, proximity or the closeness implies a relationship. You're probably doing this already, but you need to be conscious of making good proximity choices and pushing the concept. Once you've become aware of the importance of relationships between lines of type, you start to notice the effect. Rarely is a principle of proximity the only answer to a problematic page. The other elements of alignment, contrast, and repetition can also be applied to your layouts as well. But usually, this is the starting point for creating a good design.